Well, we're back. The best time of the year. The downtime between Halloween and commercialism. I mean Christmas. Yep, the month of daily anime reviews is back, and I've been particularly excited for this one because this one's been 3 years in the making. When I decided to start this series, I knew exactly what 2025's theme would be. You see, anime's evolution over the past 3 decades is one of the most fascinating developments in the arts that span from the turn of the millennium. I think it's due to the mix of international cultural melding with domestic storytelling and the rapid growing of technology and influence in this age of information. Yeah, it's easy to see how far we've come from, say, something like Sailor Moon to Magia Lumiere in the same vein as comparing the 78 Superman to Man of Steel. But with progress, it takes time, innovation, and emerging tools and talents to get from point A to point B. And that's the theme of this Ani-vember. The progress of anime over the past 30 years. From 1995 to 2025, we're taking a look at one show from each year and seeing how they stack with their contemporaries, their legacies, and as anime themselves. Of the shows we're going to cover, they're not all going to necessarily define their respective year or be something so grand that needs to be looked at. It's more of a peer into the state of anime at the time, while also actually taking a critical dive into the stories themselves. They can rewrite the expectations of a genre's tropes, or just be another show passing by the seasons. They can have the biggest following, or be the most obscure thing you've never heard of. They range from excellent artworks that need to be talked about, to random shows I just want to talk about. In essence, it's like any other Ani-vember, but consecutively chronological this time. Now, you may also notice that, by simple math, that a show per year from 1995 to 2025 actually equates to 31 in total, not 30, which is the number of days in November. Yeah, we're going to bleed a little into December for a very unique end to this year's marathon, because I can. It's also important to note that in addition to only looking at the shows, so no external sources like manga or additive media like movies, I'm also establishing that I'm talking about these shows as they currently are as of this date. So any newly announced seasons afterwards, I clearly can't cover. So on the off chance Escaflowne gets another season somehow, I'm strictly only talking about what's already released, okay? Well, with that out of the way, let's not dawdle anymore. You saw the title of the video, you know what we're taking on, so let's get started. This is Ani-vember 2025, 30 Years of Anime Edition. +1. Let's start this long month with a long review. I've talked about 1995's Neon Genesis Evangelion extensively in the past, and in a brief TLDW, I think it's one of the most innovative and explorative franchises of all time, having brilliant theming and marketing behind it. But Evangelion has had a ton of time to build and rebuild on its identity, that through all of the economic success and rewiring of the plots and motifs of all of it, how does the original series hold up, away from all of the capitalism? Well, let's say that while the additional partitions to the building are nice, it's the solid foundation of the original architecture that really makes the mansion wondrous. Shinji Ikari is the son of the chief of a military organization bent on defending the country from giant alien creatures whose only goal is to seemingly destroy the world. They fight back with giant robots called Evangelions that can only be driven by adolescent pilots. And when Shinji's conscripted to join the battle, he hesitates after the years of neglect his father's dealt him. Well, eventually emotionally blackmailed to do it, Shinji, alongside his fellow pilots Rei and Asuka, go to defend Earth as the politics of the agency unravel hysterically as easily as Shinji's mental health. How will these 3 young saviors of Earth get out of the fight with minimal emotional damage? And what are the dark secrets behind the organization's personnel that may warrant a call to social services? So I've already talked extensively about Evangelion in a video exclusively about the entire franchise, being the first show I truly put a spotlight on in an IDC episode. I talked about the franchise's influence, history, and thematic and emotional prose. I'm also really proud of that one, so, you should go watch it. But then, why am I talking about it again here? Well, aside from the fact we're only looking at the initial 25 episodes, I actually think there's a lot more I can say about it. Not in terms of the creation or analytics of it, but how I personally feel, which is the purpose of Ani-vember after all. From the get-go, there's a solid build of the story's idea, with expert exposition and establishment of the world. It's a world you can't help but find intriguing because of the volatile nature of it, akin to shows like The Walking Dead or Attack on Titan. There's a really smart idea of how this world still manages to stay stable despite the angels and politics constantly knocking on it, as if one wrong move can knock it all over, much like how the characters fight their own private demons. The characters themselves are no less than charming. And when I say charming, I mean in that very anime-esque sort of writing and enunciation of their actions. Asuka's tsundere tendencies are textbook anime trope writing, but she's just so good at portraying this mean girl with a chip on her shoulder that her character arc leads to some of the most profound ideas of existentialism in all of media. Shinji's shaky dedication to a cause he was just thrusted into is both irritating and understandable, as he is a kid who makes mistakes and has essentially the world's fate in his hands. The psychology of Shinji's fears and nerves towards failure is amped to this unsettled degree that I can really only describe as a traumatic tightrope, as it would seem anything could push him off the edge at any moment, and it's both a terrifying and terrifyingly comforting thought, which does kind of happen, but we're not talking about that ending. All of the characters have this kind of arc, where their situations are in this constant battle with pressures, personalities, or politics that can tip the very psychosis of their being. Even Gendo, Shinji's father, has this overarching mystique about him about why he's the way he is, and there are troubling implications with him in terms of the ethics of the sanctity of life during troubled times. Thematically, there's always something to note in each episode, whether it be the Christian symbolism, the day-to-day life of child soldiers, or just a simple power struggle in the midst of a crisis. You find there's more questions raised than answered, and you wonder if you even want an answer to those. But enough with the brainy stuff. What about the adrenaline stuff? Well, the animation is just as compelling. Besides the typical anime stock movements and lip flaps, it's the high-octane moments that really get you gripped into the visual storytelling. The fight scenes are not only giant and epic, but each one is different in formula, pacing, and strategy, and they're all super fun to engage in. Or there's the descent into the basement. It runs on this visual cascade of sharp lighting and bold colors in one of the show's more intense build-ups, accompanied by some incredible music found in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Which, yeah, let's talk about that. The music in Evangelion is wildly good. A Cruel Angel's Thesis, Fly Me to the Moon, the countless classical pieces that always throw you for a loop, they're all too memorable and too pronounced to overlook. The soundtrack is very much a part of Evangelion's identity in telling the stories of loss, spiritual flightiness, and higher existentialism that is one of anime's greatest. But two flagship moments of the show is what truly makes me love it. The first is the elevator scene, with attention led from the preceding episodes shoving the full brunt of Asuka's crumbling psyche and Ria's inhuman apathy in each other's faces to an uncomfortable, emotionally raw degree. It's unironically one of my favorite scenes in all of media, not just anime. And the second is the ending. The incredibly infamous ending. Now, to be fair, I know some people don't like it, and I can't say I don't see why. It's cheesy and a borderline cop-out, and if End of Evangelion didn't exist, I think the legacy of the show may have had a few more struggles. But to me, it's this last episode that really forces all the big questions on you, and it's Shinji answering them to the best of his abilities. It's simple in premise, but complex in execution, as you gain both the perspective of Shinji's journey through his eyes alongside your own personal conclusions. It's aided by wild imagery and flows like a Socratic symposium. I don't think I've ever seen another show end like that, and it's really fascinating. And I think that's what I can conclude about Evangelion. It's nothing but a fascinating time. From the broad yet existentially pinpointed motifs, the psychologically stretched cast, those moments of great fights and small atmosphere-contained conversations, and an exploratory OST, as a show, it hits the right boxes. Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of the anime I believe everyone should watch, as not only does it present thought-provoking ideas in life, failure, and death, but it's a basis for much of anime's influence in character writing, animation, music direction, and even marketing. And on a personal note, I think it's a stellar show in how it knows how to showcase likable, flawed, and vulnerable protagonists, as well as knowing the best music to ever grace the near apocalypse. If you can, descend upon it sometime and just let the world of Evangelion come tumbling down onto you.